Hey guys, welcome back. Today let's talk about whether facts care about your feelings or whether your feelings are facts. Something to that extent. Ben Shapiro said it. I think he made it famous several years ago now on Twitter. He said facts don't care about your feelings. Now he has several books with that title, which I don't know how much they're paying Ben Shapiro, but it's probably not enough. How much money would you need to be paid for your book to be titled Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings? I'm not sure. Not sure if any of that. But look, when Ben Shapiro says it, right, he's a political commentator. And I get the point in which he means it. He's, political commentator. I think he's trained as an attorney. I think he went to law school. So when he says it from his philosophical / law being a part of philosophy, when he says it from his perspective, I go, yeah, you're right. Facts don't care about your feelings. I mean, it's kind of misguided, and it really indicates the split that we see in America today. The split that, to be fair, I mean, let's get our tinfoil hats out. The split that political commentators like Ben Shapiro profit from, very much so. So he's not really incentivized to heal the split, but this is where the split comes from. Is, yeah, you're right, facts don't care about your feelings, but there's this other side that has their own feelings, and in order to reconcile that, you need to at least understand where you're coming from, and maybe when you do it that way, when you communicate that way, you realize, oh, I have my own feelings too, and I just use the facts to fit. I have my own confirmation bias. That's essentially what this tweet says. So when Ben Shapiro says it, no big deal. But now we have a psychologist, Nicole LaPera, on Twitter saying feelings aren't facts, which is an iteration of that. So, when a guy who went to law school, I think, yeah, you're not capable of seeing the world in a better way. And it's not wrong, it's just limited, I think. That's fine, whatever. But when a psychologist says it, when a therapist says it, I go, oh, this is a problem. Because this is exactly what your job is as a psychologist, is to see how feelings are in fact facts. They are facts. They may not be a total reflection of what's true, but they also may be an indication, and we only see that when we look at, emotions for what they really are. But yeah, if you just have this one premise, I don't care how good of a psychologist Nicole LaPera is, and she says a lot of, I think, accurate things on Twitter. I follow her. But if this premise is in the back of your mind, and this got a lot of retweets, a lot of likes, people love this stuff, which is why I'm talking about it, because this debate here it's not really a debate, it's just two people who you wouldn't think agree. And how this is a reflection of just a huge problem in psychology, a premise with which you will necessarily just completely hamper the therapy that you're able to give somebody. I don't even know if it's even would be considered proper therapy at that point if you walk around with this premise in your mind. So that's what we're going to break down here. That's what we do here, right? We look at emotions, how they really work. So therapy becomes simple. Just becomes simple as possible. Painful, it's still going to be painful. We can't take the pain out of it, nor would I want to take the pain out of it nor would I if I wanted to. If I was able to, you know what I mean. So we just look at your central emotional issue and then notice it. That's all we got to do. Look at your emotional issue, figure out what it is, and just look at it. Notice it. It is really that simple, and it is also that painful. So to understand, I think why I think this speaks to a huge problem in particularly psychology and the therapy, academia, psychology, the therapy industrial complex, as I'm going to keep calling it. Huge aside there. I stopped myself. You get, I'm impressed. So yeah, there's a therapy industrial complex. It indicates a problem there, and how it leads to the split in culture. Anyway, and it's the failure to distinguish between psychology and philosophy. Right now, what is philosophy? It is a study of reality. That's really what it is. I mean, ultimately, and all the other sciences are just iterations, are just one aspect of philosophy. There's a reality out there. Let's study it. Now, psychology is the study of man's relationship with reality, because we recognize, right? Because Dostoevsky was writing these books in the 19th century about how a guy would be split into two, and this other guy who had all these morals. I just read The Double, and I'm reading The Gambler now. This other guy who has all these morals, he's going to be, an inveterate gambler. Well, wait. So clearly reality isn't this thing out there. We perceive it directly. On some concrete level, we must accept, but our ideas can be wrong. And our ideas can be completely wrong, yet at the same time, they feel completely right. What's going on here? Well, this is psychology. Right? This is where psychology comes in. Which one's more fundamental? They're not. It's like, those planetary systems where like just two planets rotate around each other, or two stars rotate around each other. You can't have philosophy without psychology, and you can't have psychology without philosophy. In order to study a species' psychology, you would need to look at their philosophy, and vice versa. So what psychology cares about, that philosophy wouldn't, is feelings, because what determines our beliefs, and it indicated before when I said confirmation bias, is our feelings, which can be neither right nor wrong, but they're there, and they influence us. So yet it's true that facts out there don't care about our feelings. But what Nicole LePera says, she says feelings aren't facts. That is completely false. And if Ben Shapiro said it, I would say whatever. And in fact, if Nicole LePera says something like, facts don't care about your feelings, that would be a little bit more correct. But the feelings aren't facts, coming especially from a psychologist. Did she just misspeak here and just fired off this tweet without thinking about it? Okay, maybe. But the fact that you could fire off such a tweet without thinking about it shows that that this really isn't an idea that you have, or this is an idea buried in your mind, and it's not that there's no arguments against this, like we're going to talk about today. There's no question about this, and it's such a fundamental premise that you need to get right if you're going to be a good therapist, if you're even going to conduct what I think would technically be proper therapy. So that's the distinction, right? So psychology cares about your feelings. Where do these feelings come from? Why do we have them? How are we responsible for them? To any extent we are responsible for them. What's the situation that caused the feeling? What exactly is the feeling? It's not good or bad. Okay, fine. Those aren't feelings. What do you truly feel? And maybe you have to use a couple words. Maybe you're not that literate with your emotions, so it's going to take a while, and you have to think about it. And maybe you were just lost in, you were just like some coding session or some work session, and you're just a little bit tuned out, and blood's not really getting to your temporal lobes too easily, so now you're going to think about it for a while. But your feelings are there, and they matter. And if your view of reality is in fact incorrect, it will only be through an exploration of your feelings and where they're really coming from that is going to ultimately change your mind. I mean, learning facts too, but I think we learn facts or we learn a new argument that ultimately matters. I mean, this isn't the most sound argument, but I would say that ultimately matters because feelings are indicated in those facts or new argument that we learn, right? So, so when people believe that their feelings trump facts, what's going on here is that's a triggered complex, right? That's what a complex is. That's why I could go on and on about the therapy industrial complex. It is a neurotic way of dealing with reality, of handling a problem. of figuring out a solution to a problem, which may be a mental health crisis in America, to whatever extent there is one. And so you have this complex, and it works to achieve its own ends, not to engage with reality. So it works to increase its size, it works to increase its funding, it works to perpetuate itself. It doesn't work to engage with reality or really come to a solution. That's not its purpose. You guys set up this thing that was going to have this inherently insidious, nefarious purpose, but the mistake was setting up the industry this way. But, right, so it's a complex. And we have the same, of course, we have the same complexes in our psychology. We have a feeling, a belief, an attitude that we work to justify, that we work to aggravate, that we work to grow in spite of contradictory evidence, in spite of evidence that if we didn't have that complex, we would be able to see it clearly. And somebody else is looking at us who doesn't have that complex, and he goes, dude, don't you see the fact? It's right there, and vice versa. So the first guy, he'll look at the other guy who has a different kind of complex, right? We can see it in each other, but that's what therapy is. That's what therapy is being able to see yourself in the way that others see you. To see others see you, right? That's psychic objectivity. So if you want to communicate, if you want to cultivate a better relationship with reality, well, you can't do that without first recognizing that feelings are facts. It's a fact about you. It may not be a fact about reality, but it is a fact about you. It is a fact about who you are. And the only reason why I think a psychologist like LaPera would say your feelings aren't facts is they don't really understand feelings, right? They don't really understand emotions and where they come from. There's no nuanced view. We don't even try to do it. Most people just say, well, everybody's different, and feelings are too complicated, and as long as you express them in some vague way, but usually in the way that we express them, if we don't really know what emotions are, it ends up being emotionalism, and we end up complaining and dumping our baggage on other people, and it feels awful, so when we try to do it, we just feel worse, and it just creates this negative feedback loop until you have nothing left. You have nothing left than to sit there with either yourself, or if you're a psychologist, your client, and say, well, the facts don't care about your feelings. Your feelings aren't facts. You may feel that way, Mark. This is me talking to myself. But your feelings aren't facts. You're clearly just being a big pussy. I'm not saying I'm not being a pussy, but gotta ask why, right? You still gotta ask why. And it leads you to sit there in an argument and go, not sit there in an argument, but if you're a therapist in the clinic, and you just gotta be, quote, confrontational with somebody and say, look, that's your feeling, but it's not reality. Yeah, your feeling may not be reality, but what you're doing is not therapy. And this is especially true to do because on the surface, yes, your feeling is not a fact of reality, but the thing is, when you start to understand feelings and what they are and where they come from and how we can put them under these two general subheadings of anger and anxiety, and you start to decode this and ask where, figuring out more about yourself, learning about your loop, asking about where these feelings are coming from, then you start to see, oh, wait a minute. First of all, my feelings can be right, and more often than not, they are, as long as I'm in a place in my life at the time when I'm relatively connected with other people, and I feel like my life is, I'm not avoiding too much. So I'm not avoiding too much. Man, what was I saying? I swear I had a really good point there. Well, never mind. No, it was something about feelings. Oh yeah, facts may indicate reality. Facts may, or feelings may be true. I mean, feelings is an intuition, and intuitions are often right. That's all I was saying. So yeah, just saying that your feelings are wrong, and maybe they are wrong, but that doesn't lead to more awareness. That doesn't lead to awareness of that feeling. And your feeling may in fact be right, and they can be helpful guides. I wouldn't take feelings uncritically, but at the same time, if you have a feeling and it's strong, you gotta figure out where that's coming from first. That may be telling you something, very true about your situation and what you need to do. This is just, it's not just with this, it's with a lot of communication, this disconnect between facts and feelings, between philosophy and psychology. Okay, so for example, like this has just come up several times in the past week, so I guess I'll just talk about it, because I think we all deal with this to some degree. I know I go through this with my dad. So somebody in your life is somebody who's close to you. A spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, family member, close friend, whatever. Somebody is gaining weight, and they keep gaining weight. And you want to talk with them about it, right? And you want to let them know in a way that conveys that, you're there to support them and everything. But let's say you say, hey, Steve, I think you're gaining too much weight. This could really be a problem. I know this whole fat positivity thing is great to a point, but after, it becomes a little unhealthy, and a lot sooner than you think. Not at 300 pounds, but closer to 30 pounds. So I just want to say, yeah, I'm just here to support you, and okay, this is kind of gay, but you get where I'm coming from. Just try to be nice about it. Try, be honest, but be gentle. And then how does Steve respond? Steve goes, oh, what are you saying? Are you saying I'm not good enough to be your friend? Are you saying you don't like me anymore? We're not going to go hunting because I'm some fat ass? Oh, you're saying you're too good for me. You're saying you're too good for this relationship. And now you say, well, hey, Steve, the facts don't care. Your waistline doesn't care about your feelings, which is true. And it's good to maintain that if you are correct and Steve does need to lose weight, and he is in fact, let's just say that's objectively true, he is in fact being defensive and reacting with this complex, not with a unified psyche. This complex that says, Steve, you got to feel this certain level of comfort no matter what. You got to feel this, and if you stray a little bit outside, you just attack, it's going to look assertive, but it's really just all driven by anxiety. It's just fight, not flight. It's just a fight response. It's not going to make sense. If Steve has that complex, well, maybe the reality is he still needs to lose weight, but I think more importantly, you, in communicating with Steve, is going to be crucial for you to speak to that and not just come over top and say, well, whatever, idiot, I'm trying to be nice. These emotions are a part of us. Oh, and by the way, when you say that to Steve, you say it in a way you recognize that you do it as well, maybe not to the same degree. Again, not making any kind of moral equivalency. It's not I'm not trying to make that point, like a postmodern moral relativism point. It's not that, but we all have that same issue. We all have complexes, and maybe part of the reason why you can't communicate with Steve is because you have your own issue you don't want to look at. So that's a reflection of your own complex. And you can say, oh, it's not fair that we need to deal with emotions. If we should just have a philosophical argument and not deal with emotions. Right, okay. But if I had wheels, I'd be a wagon. Right? That's just not our nature. We have this, we all have this. It's part of communication. It's part of why we can't get healthy therapy is because we can't speak, we can't point directly to this and notice how important it is and expand it out and bring awareness to it and articulate emotions and how they work and how precisely they're a reflection of our thoughts and vice versa. We don't do that. And that's why it seems more insurmountable than it is. I mean, this isn't a new idea. This is pre-Christian. It's not Christianity's fault, but Christianity expanded this distinction between emotion and reason. Like, these are two opposite things, and they're not. Right? They're just reflections of each other. I really like Aristotle. We think of Aristotle as like the king of logician and king of rationality, and in a lot of ways he is. But his point in Poetics, he says, when communicating with an audience or anybody, it's actually disrespectful. I love that he says it's disrespectful. I don't know if that's his exact word, and obviously I didn't read it in the Greek. Okay, but it's effectively disrespectful to treat somebody like they don't have emotions, to just treat them on a logical level. That's disrespectful to who they are as a human, because they have emotions. They have emotions. And so you're treating them like a robot. Obviously you didn't say robot, but effectively you are relegating them to the status of a robot, what we would consider robots to be now, if you don't speak to him like he has emotions. And I think that's a good point. I'll leave it there. Not going to do better than Aristotle. We do free consultations, animusempire.com/schedule. Thank you guys, and remember that you can be both right and happy. All it takes is a little bit of communication.